So I didn't really plan on making this video, but I was watching it and I thought this was a perfect example to show the dangers of the division in this country that is really, really orchestrated by the media we consume. This is the danger of liberal media being very, very partisan on one side, and then you have conservative media doing the same thing on the other side. The net effect of both of them doing this allows for all the corruption that we all complain about. Because when you have this team mentality, that means that the media you consume protects the people, the politicians who share your political ideology. So if you're conservative, conservative media protects the Republicans and politicians on the right. So when they're doing dirt and when they're doing corruption, rather than informing you about this so you can vote them out, clean up your party, they protect them by focusing only on liberal media and people on the left. Liberal media does the same thing. They focus your attention only on the right. So, idolized by the left, this doctor. And then you have a clown who has no business in politics, questioning him. So if you're on the liberal side, you're on the left side, you're not going to actually listen to this conversation. What you're going to do is you idolize the doctor, you hate Jordan. You realize that what he's doing here is not noble. He's probably just putting on a show. And because of that, you're not going to listen to what he's saying. You're just going to say, this guy's a clown, look at him. And then you have, the doctor that you idolize, and you're like, okay, put him in his place type of thing. But let's actually listen to what actually got said.
We can to get the level of infection in this country low that it is no longer a threat. That is when. And I believe when that happens, you will see.
What determines when?
I'm sorry.
What measure? Are we just going to continue this forever, or when do we get to the point? What measure? What standard? What objective outcome do we have to reach before Americans get their liberty and freedoms back?
So he actually just made a valid point and very clearly stated. Now, the liberty and freedoms back part, that's the rhetoric. But what he's doing is he's asking, by what measure are we going to determine specifically when we can fully open, or something to that effect. The doctor just gave a vague, when the levels are low enough or whatever. But what level is that? That's not a level. If this was Trump giving an answer like this, if you're left leaning, if this was Trump giving an answer like this, you would clearly see what I see. And you'd say he's dodging and not answering the question. Right? But because of the bias, right? He's a clown, and he is. This guy's trash. I get it. But just because he's trash doesn't mean I just dismiss anything he says. Right? A drunk guy on the train can say drugs are bad. He's right. Don't look at him, oh, he's a drunk, what does he know? No, he's right. Right? Don't focus too much on the messenger. Focus on the message. It's about whether what he's saying is correct or not. That's what matters.
You're indicating liberty and freedom. I look at it as a public health measure.
He's steering the conversation away from the question. Now, admittedly, that's because Mr. Jim Jordan chose to throw that rhetoric in there. He's asking a very, very specific question. Remember, this is a doctor. He's all about metrics. He's all about data and facts and quantity. And he's not in the business of vague, right? He has been doing the kind of work he does for decades, which is all about precision. Jim Jordan asked him for precision in his answer. What is the metric that we're going to how will we be able to say, he says a number now, and then in the future, that number becomes true, and now we know, okay, this is the metric. Like, what's the specific, if I were going to write a computer program or something that was going to be triggered by a condition to let send out a notice that, hey, we've reached the point. Like, what I need to put in numbers. I can't put into the computer, oh, when the levels are low enough, right? That's a vague answer. But again, you will miss it if you are very biased and partisan and you have this sort of team mentality, idolizing him and then despising this other guy, again, rightfully so. Do you really hear the conversation, and do you really see how he's dodging? So now he's going to talk about, oh, I don't think it's about freedom. That's not what the question is. Substance of the question is, what's the metric? This is not a response of a scientist, or when you say levels are low enough, that means you can run this thing on as long as you want. As long as there's two people that have this, that are sick or whatever, you can say, well, there's still two people, and that two people, they can make it three. I'm being, facetious, but that's an extreme example. But there's a long range before you get to an extreme level where you can keep pushing this thing on and on. Now, you may wonder, why would he want to extend it? Let's not even get into that. It's not about that.
To prevent people from dying and going to the hospital.
You don't think Americans' liberties have been threatened the last year, Dr. Fauci?
But of course, like I said, he's a clown, so he loves that. Oh, you respond to my rhetoric, you ignore my actual question, and you talk about rhetoric. If he was legit, he would ignore the rhetoric stuff and go back to, no, what's the metric? But no, he loves that. Let's talk about liberty. Oh, and the freedom, this is America. Like, he loves that, right? This is what you call Jordan out for right now. This is where he's getting into clown mode. The question before, valid question. The response the doctor gave, clown answer. For someone of his, expertise, clown answer. What Jordan's doing right now, clown.
Been assaulted. Their liberties have.
I don't look at this as a liberty thing, Congressman Jordan.
Well, that's obvious.
So again, he's continuing with this, I don't think. He asked you for a specific number. You are a scientist, right? Give us the data, right? Don't continue with this rhetoric. Like, now
as a public health thing.
Now it's derailed.
I disagree with you on that.
You think the Constitution is suspended during a virus, during a pandemic?
This will end for sure when we get the level of infection very low. It is now at such a...
When we get the level of infection very low, how do I punch that into a computer? This is not a CNN journalist. This is a doctor being asked for a specific question, and his response is when the level is very low. Okay, I can assure you this doctor is very clear that he's been asked for a specific number. What is the metric? He's very clear on what is being asked and what an appropriate answer is. So he's choosing to be vague. Now, you can judge why he's doing this. That's on you. But he's smart enough to know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. Just like how, it might drop block a drop or two. Oh, nobody should really be doing, you know what I'm talking about, right? Trying to protect the inventory, lying to us, right? He made that decision that he's gonna talk in a sneaky way that makes it sound like he's saying that it doesn't work, but he actually didn't say that. What he actually said was, if you don't use it properly. But he basically manipulated, he knows the way a lot of people think, right? Or don't think. And he took advantage of that, the lack of critical thinking that the masses have. He took advantage of that to twist you into thinking he's saying something he's not really saying to protect the inventory. That's this guy who's now choosing not to answer the question.
Again, of major surgery.
Dr. Fauci, over the last year, Americans' First Amendment rights have been completely attacked. Your right to go to church, your right to assemble, your right to petition.
Okay, so now he's going back on the rhetoric train. Let me see if I can skip to where he engages him again on the specifics. So listen, he's asking a very, very specific question. Regardless of what you think about Jim Jordan, listen to the question he's asking and see if you believe that his question is being answered. Now, as if you are really partisan, what you're going to look to do, and you idolize the doctor, what you're going to look to do is you're going to look to find an excuse. So you're going to make up a reason why he's not answering the question. First, you probably were thinking, oh, he's answering the question. Hopefully, if you've been listening to me, you realize, oh, he's not actually answering the question. But now you're going to go and you can't read his mind, right? But now you're going to pretend to know his thoughts. Again, this is depending on how partisan you are, right? You're going to start saying, well, he probably didn't want to tell him a number because then things change and then the number is different. Then they're going to hold him to it. They're going to say, oh, you said this number, right? Your mind is going to search for some kind of excuse to justify what's happening here, rather than just looking at the facts. What was the question asked? What was the response? Question asked, what
measures have to be attained before Americans get their First Amendment liberties back?
I just told you that.
No, you haven't given anything specific. You said, we hope when this... Tell me specifically.
Right now...
He's being very, very clear that he wants specifics. There's no mistaking what he's asking for. If he, for some reason, can't give a number, that's an answer as well. There's no excuse for this. He can answer and say, I can't tell you a specific number because X, Y, and Z. Instead of giving a valid response like that would be, either you give a specific number or you say you can't give a specific number and why. Instead of doing that, he wants to talk about rhetoric about, oh, respond to his rhetoric, right? Talking about, oh, I don't think it's liberties, whatever. And then he's giving vague over and over again. Oh, when it gets low, now what does that mean? This doctor is not stupid. He knows what he's being asked. He's intentionally doing this.
Right now, we have about 60,000 infections a day, which is a very large risk for a surge. We're not talking about liberties.
Now he's, again, sophistry. He's just talking, oh, there's a lot of people are dying. And we know that. Just answer the question. Why does this have to be a long, drawn, answer the question. Give the number or say why you can't. Stop telling us stuff that we know about.
Talking about a pandemic that has killed 560,000 Americans.
See, now is where you drop the numbers. Oh, so many people have died. Yeah, okay. What does that have to do with the question? Answer the question. Answer the question. Could have been 1 million people died. That doesn't answer the question. 500 million people died. Okay, what's the answer? What's the metric? These are the dangers of partisanship. This doctor is not going to be held to the same standard as everyone else because we have half the country that idolizes him and he's protected by the media on that side. It's the same reason why Trump got elected and why he stayed in power. Half the country idolized Trump, saw him as something beyond human, and then you have the media protecting him as well. So Trump would go out there and dodge and lie and twist and whatever, and they don't see that. They don't recognize it, right? Because they watch the media that protects him, right? Tim Pool, Blaze TV, Crowder, Newsmax, right? And also when they're listening to him, they're not really listening to him in terms of listening to what he said and does it make sense? No. They're more listening to the other side. Everything Pelosi said that doesn't make any sense. Oh, she's an idiot and the left, whatever, right? Trump could say a million things that are wrong, don't make any sense, flaws. They won't see it. The media they consume won't point it out, and they won't recognize it because they're not listening. The same way liberals will listen to this doctor and not recognize. The reason that I recognized that he was not being honest the first time that he made that statement about we don't need to wear whatever is because I don't idolize him. I'm not on a team. I listened to the words he was saying and I analyzed them same as I would Trump, and it didn't make sense. And it ended up being that I was right. I recognized something. It's not because I'm some smart person, right? If everyone listened to each side with the same level of attention, we would recognize so much more of what's going on in this country. Stop paying attention only to the people who have ideologies that don't agree with you. Pay attention to the people who share your ideology as well, and make sure that they are not playing you for a fool. If you're conservative, pay attention to Republicans. Stop focusing so much on people that you don't even vote for. If you're liberal, stop focusing so much on Republicans. Focus on the Democratic Party and what they're up to. If everyone's only watching the other side, then no one's watching. And that means our politicians can get away with murder. This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.